It is truly a wonder in disguise.
So that we can finally terminate those who mistreat our wonderful veterans. And just weeks ago, both parties united for groundbreaking criminal justice reform. They said it couldn't be done. That we added another 304,000 jobs last month alone, almost double the number expected. Economic miracle is taking place in the United States, and the only thing that can stop it are foolish wars, politics, or ridiculous partisan investigations. If there is going to be peace and legislation, there cannot be war and investigation. It just doesn't work that way.
So yeah, I mean, after a few months of feeling like really bad and obsessing over things and just feeling completely lost, I think whenever I started to feel good again and productive and like I was doing things that were meaningful, I felt like I had meaning in my life that I didn't previously feel. So the past couple weeks, since I've felt just more disconnected, detached, and some days I feel really depressed, it's been really hard for me to, I guess, accept that that is something that I will feel sometimes and that it's okay. Because it's, you know, like I'm listening to Emotional Intelligence right now, and it's talking about how, you know, there needs to be a balance between positive emotion and negative emotion. Like, it shouldn't all be positive or negative. Like, there's going to be both, and it's like, you need to find a balance between the two. So I guess it's just been really defeating the past couple weeks, the fact that I've felt pretty negative for the most part, because it's like, oh, well, I was feeling pretty good before. Like, did something happen or change? What's wrong? Why am I feeling more negative? I think it's a different type of loneliness than I've experienced before, I would say, because it's like I don't feel like a crippling loneliness like you were saying, but I just feel alone in the sense that I think whenever you have somebody close to you, it gives you a sense of meaning, and like, I think there's a lot of passion involved, you know?
Missouri, north and south.
And to Alan Roth and Steve Hurt, our thanks for the statistics as you look at the...
Don't drink and drive. A public service message from ABC.
I've met many of my most valuable customers through chamber functions. In the past year, my business has doubled. I'm convinced becoming a member of the Chamber of Commerce was the best thing that I could have done.
This is Lama Tipson Yeshi from the very famous Sera Monastery in Lhasa, Tibet. He's a Tibetan. And I'm going to ask him a few questions about his opinions on drugs, specifically ganja and charas, and to find out how he feels, how these drugs fit in the grand scheme of things, his opinion. Tipanishi, can you tell me how you feel about just drugs in general, what opinions you have on them?
Yeah, my mom would definitely, she would be upset with me, and I would just be kind of like freaked out and uncomfortable, and so I wouldn't really be able to say anything. And so she would be interrogating me, and she would ask me questions and I would just kind of be like, and I would not know what to say. I would just be like, and then she'd be like, why are you saying anything? And it would be it would just go on loop because she would ask me another question, why are you saying anything? I would just be like,
and mental identical thing.
And it was not
those people has sometimes helped by taking external matter. But my opinion, that can't help to bring realization, higher consciousness. It is not good, perfect method to bring perfect peace.
It's brighter, fresh Arctic light.
C'est un scandale, enfin c'est absolument une honte totale. Monsieur le chaman, monsieur le chaman, monsieur le chaman, monsieur le chaman, c'est calme, c'est calme, c'est calme, c'est calme.
Hi, I'm Michael Pollack, and I'd like to personally invite you to see the all-new Colonial House Apartments, where I've created an exciting new lifestyle in beautiful Southwest Houston. Move today to the Colonial House Apartments and receive a free video recorder.
Facile, de l'acid musique. Ça vous plaît bien, ça va quand même, hein? Ça me glace. Monsieur le chaman, vous avez mis un scandale. C'est un scandale. Je vous trouve un petit peu hargneux quand même. Monsieur le chaman, monsieur le chaman,
Hello, fellow Texans. I'm Major Hutchison, commander of the Northwest Region of the Texas Department of Public Safety. Past experience indicates that about 180 violent death reports will be sent over our teletype network during the Christmas New Year holiday. These reports will involve 92 traffic fatalities. Here is a very familiar scene. This family is overjoyed at the prospect of visiting relatives and friends.
Sign up for one of the new First City CDs, and you'll get high interest. Plus a highly interesting gift. From a Sony Walkman to a TV or binoculars, a bigger TV, a microwave, a home entertainment center, a sailboat. There's a gift for every CD, from $2,000 all the way up to $1 million.
Where everything seems at peace. I was alone, just me and the animals. It was a great feeling, free once more to plan and do as I pleased. Beyond was all around me. My dream was a dream no longer. I suppose I was here because this was something I had to do. Not just dream about it, but do it. I suppose, too, I was here to test myself. Not that I had never done it before, but this time it was to be a more thorough and lasting examination. What was I capable of that I didn't know yet? Could I truly enjoy my own company for an entire year? And was I equal to everything this wild land could throw at me? I had seen its moods in late spring, summer, and early fall, but what about the winter? Would I love the isolation then? With its bone-stabbing cold, its ghostly silence? At age 51, I intended to find out. Another 100 yards, and I broke out of the brush to my pile of cabin logs I had cut last July. I sat down and leaned against them, and while I chewed on a chunk of smoked salmon, my eyes wandered over the peeled logs. That had been a big job last summer. Hard work, but I enjoyed it. It was cool in the timber, and there were mornings I could see my breath. I had harvested the logs from a stand of spruce less than 300 yards from where they were now piled.
The goal of this trip is ecstasy. To move outside the boundaries of normal perception and consciousness into the far reaches of your nervous system. As you begin this journey, it is important to remember the following basic trusts and beliefs. You must be ready to accept the possibility that there is an infinite range of awarenesses for which we now have no words. That awareness can expand beyond the range of your ego, yourself, your familiar identity, beyond everything you have learned, beyond your notions of space and time, beyond the differences which usually separate people from each other and from the world around them. You must remember that throughout human history, millions have made this voyage. A few, whom we call mystics, saints, or Buddhas, have made this experience endure and have communicated it to their fellow men. You must remember, too, that the experience is safe. At the very worst, you will end up the same person who entered this experience. All of the dangers which you have feared are unnecessary productions of your own mind. Whether you experience heaven or hell, remember that it is your mind which creates them. Avoid grasping the one or fleeing the other. You must maintain faith and trust in the potentiality of your own nervous system and the billion-year-old life process. With your ego left behind you, your brain can't go wrong. Try to keep the memory of a revered teacher or a trusted friend whose name can serve as guide and protection. Trust your divinity. Trust your brain. Trust your traveling companions. Whenever in doubt, turn off your mind. Relax. float downstream. In order for your consciousness to flow beyond the confines of the normal body ego, it is necessary to undo the bonds which chain you to the external world, to dissolve the imprints
look at the wildlife rehabilitators in Texas who dedicate their lives to returning these animals to the wild. On the Naturalist Journal, we'll look at one endangered species that lives in East Texas. We'll show you how the red-cockaded woodpecker has been getting some help in finding a new home in the pines. The land on both sides of the Rio Grande, from Laredo to Brownsville, is rich with remnants of the past. This area has been designated a heritage corridor to preserve these cultural resources. We'll take you downriver on a trip through time. And finally, we'll experience Texas by looking at the rock art left behind by some of the earliest Texans. These stories are coming up next on Texas Parks and Wildlife.
Legal immigrants enrich your nation and strengthen our society.
Texas Parks and Wildlife, a television series for all outdoors.
Parks and Wildlife Communications, this is Kathy, and it has a lot of ant bites or just a few? Okay, and what is your address so I can send a game warden over?
You can set it right over here on the AstroTurf. He was found with fire ants on him.
The Texas Parks and Wildlife Department has granted over 350 animal rehabilitation licenses to qualified applicants throughout the state. The license allows rehabilitators to legally work with injured, orphaned, or sick wild animals.
That's a buck.
Rehabilitators take in all kinds of animals needing treatment, from a one-day-old fawn covered with fire ant bites to a featherless baby bird.
This is a young chimney swift that came to us last night. It's 2 days of age. This bird fell from the nest, and a lady found him crawling across her carpet. There's some bruising on his face, and his right toe is broken. He had quite a fall. We're guardedly optimistic at this time.
This bird had a broken wing as a very young owl, and we had to run a steel pin through the wing to get everything to line up real well. Today is the day that the pin is going to be coming out.
Not like
straight
that.
up that bone, huh?
My story starts when I was born in Santa Cruz, Bolivia hospital, and then I moved to Lafayette, Louisiana. I didn't have any memories there. And then I moved to Houston, and I didn't have any memories there. Then I moved to Farmington, and I had a couple memories there. But the first memory I really had was the breaking a kid's finger in the door.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And then I moved to Casper, Wyoming again. That's where I really had all my memories as a child.
Tell me about that. What's that place like?
It's very cold. And I had a lot of friends, but I had a lot of people who didn't like me either. It was weird.
Windy?
Yeah. There's nothing out there really. I kind of just rode bikes around, like all the time.
What was the culture like there? I mean, did you live in town or out of town?
I lived in the suburbs, but the suburbs are so small, like I could ride my bike into town.
Was there still like a movie theater and fast
Yeah.
food and stuff?
But I didn't get an allowance, so I just
Yeah.
rode my bike around everywhere. I mostly just went to school. I did like some clubs and stuff and sports. Played soccer. That type of stuff, you know. There's not really much out there. Went hunting a couple times when I was a kid. It's pretty cool.
How do you feel about that now?
I still like to hunt. I mean, I really want to go elk hunting, honestly. I feel like that'd be very cool.
I've been hunting a couple times, but we never got anything.
I feel like I would have to just shoot the animal and then not touch it anymore. Like, I would, like, rest my hand on it and probably pray for it or something, you know, in some way, but I mean, I'm gonna use all the meat. And elk is really good. It's very good.
Venison?
Yeah.
Nice.
Look at you. Look at you.
A router, flashing lights?
Yeah.
You peeping Tom.
The following program is brought to you in living color on NBC.
One of the first things that everybody should understand is that every creature in the universe that is in any way sensitive and in any manner of speaking conscious regards itself as a human being. That is to say, it knows and is aware of a hierarchy of beings above it and a hierarchy of beings below it. If you take such a tiny creature as a fruit fly, which lives only a few days, it is aware of all sorts of weird little animals and objects and spores floating in the atmosphere which we don't even notice unless we've got a microscope around, which very few people have. And it criticizes them as being inferior animals and all that sort of thing. Whereas human beings are things that it doesn't comprehend. They're as much outside its intellect as a quasar is outside ours. And we see these far-off objects floating there. We have only the vaguest idea of what they may be. Actually, they may all be some kind of animal. The hair on someone's nose in another dimension. And all these galaxies being the constituent elements. But there is, I think, a fundamental truth everybody must understand in order to know what doubts absolutely fundamental to an understanding of our relativity. That is to say, that wherever you are, and whoever you are, and whatever you are, and you can see a horizon all around you to exactly the same distance. You're in the center of a circle because your senses extend a certain direction in orbit, therefore give you the impression of being in the middle. Now, everything in the world feels like that, and also it has its own kind, which look natural to it. You see spiders and hydras and sea urchins and so on don't look very natural to us. We say, well, I wouldn't want to look like that. But they say when they see us, well, what kind of an awful thing is that? And what a lot of nonsense it does. You see, if your dog watches you when you're typewriting, your dog looks at you and says, well, you see, human beings, especially cats, dogs have tried to catch on to human beings in a sort of a funny way. But cats look at you and think, you're out of your mind. You're absolutely crazy. What do you sit there all day for, feverishly pecking away at a typewriter, say, or doing something busy like that, when you could sit and curl up and purr? You just, the cat, from the cat's point of view, you don't understand what life's about at all. But all cats and cat company, cats in cat company, they feel that they are people. Because the definition of a person is where you look from. And of course that is the meaning of the very interesting Buddhist idea. You can only become a Buddha, that is to say, you can only become enlightened, liberated, aware of your unity with the universe from the human position. And Buddhism calls itself the middle way, because it is the way for someone in the middle, and that's everyone. So there is, believe it or not, a form of yoga, ways of liberation for worms, for fruit flies, for snails, for spiders, for birds, for everything. And they, you see, in their situation, feel just as cultured as we can possibly feel. And they have their distinctions and their snobberies, just in the same way that we do. Because you see, they dig all sorts of things that we don't even notice. We think a person is cultured because they play the piano or the violin or they read poetry or they have a big library and they have paintings all around and they have a fancy house and so on, and we say, well, there's a person of culture, and we can see at once that this is really some rather elegant human being. But when you get down into the world of fishes, they have exactly the same thing. Only, instead of depending on collecting a lot of books and things like that, it is the precise way, the very subtle wiggles of a tail, the little tremors of vibration that makes one fish a very superior fish as compared with other fish. And all the other fish look at that one and say, oh my, to be like that, what a genius. To be able to do just that little extra thing, see? Because they're very sensitive. Even airplanes in formation can't begin to do what birds and fish can do in their communal swirling dancing that they do. Now, let me just interject something here that is rather important. Biological existence is such that you have to kill to live. And vegetarians have no way out, because plants also are forms of life, and to the degree that they are aware to a certain degree, they think they're human. And when you chew up plants, you are making a very painful experience for cabbages and carrots and things like that, and you can't get out of it. And the only possible solution of the dilemma that we are in ethically is that we have to eat in order to live. That being is killing. The only possible solution to this dilemma is to reverence food and to cook it as well as possible and enjoy it to the full. There is no other ethical response that is in any way possible to this situation. And also, you must, as a human being, remember that you aren't the only pebble on the beach.
that you belong just as much as the fish and the cows and the apples. You belong to a mutual eating society.
You are now about to begin a great adventure.
You want?
The journey out of your mind. You will travel far beyond familiar reality into the level of transcendent awareness. You will leave behind you your ego, your beloved personality, which will be returned to you at the end of this voyage.
Well, as this was happening, the former Democratic Congressman Beto O'Rourke addressed his supporters in his hometown at the same time of President Trump's address. Mr. O'Rourke condemned the president's campaign for a border.
In the last 10 years, more than 4,000 children, women, and men have died trying to come to this country, to work jobs that no one will take, to be with a family member, to flee horrific brutality and violence and death in their home countries. And as we build these walls, 600 miles of the 2,000-mile border walled up and counting, we push them to ever more treacherous and remote stretches of the U.S.-Mexico border, thereby ensuring greater suffering and death.
Let me take this opportunity to thank my colleagues on the Defense Committee for their hard work in presenting this bill, but I am going to cast a very strong no vote on this legislation. And this morning I want to say a few words about why I am voting no, to talk about the number of amendments that I have offered to this bill, and to express my very serious concerns about our nation's bloated military budget, particularly in light of the many unmet needs we face as a nation. Also, I must express a very serious objection to the fact that we are dealing with a $716 billion piece of legislation that is more than half of the discretionary budget, and yet we will, in all likelihood, not have a process which allows for amendments to be debated. $716 billion at a time when in Louisiana, as I understand it, they're now going to be cutting food stamps for hungry children, where schools throughout this country don't have enough money for books or for teachers' salaries. We're talking about a $716 billion military budget.
Nope, not for like at least a year. No, sir. Easier said than done. Well, like, that's true, but if you go into it with that attitude, you know, I feel like it's easier to, like, stop yourself, as opposed to being like, well, I don't know, like, we'll see how it goes, and then, like, 3 months go by, and you're like, well, shit, dude.
The one thing I would be wary of, though, David, is that you've been pretty good about, you know, moderating things, but you've never tried any substance that's as addictive as Coke.
Yeah, well, that's why, like, I haven't done Coke, you know, and it's, like, why I am not planning on doing it anytime soon.
Yep, I plan on never doing Coke, but that's a personal thing. Also, I just don't really like uppers.
then you keep it there. Okay.
If they find out. Yes, if they find out. So usually, I'll just like tell the stories of the people. I just won't say the names. It's like, even if you might say the name, nobody's gonna call me. Yeah. Unless I'm like, not to mention, unless I don't know who this is. Yeah. Or it's like, oh, Seth. Yeah, alright. Yeah, like exactly like just a first name. Yep.
On the dashboard of my car comes in colors pink and pleasant, glows in the dark cause it's iridescent. Take it with you when you travel far. Get yourself a sweet Madonna dressed in rhinestone satin on a pedestal of abalone shell. Going 90, I ain't scary, 'cause I got the Virgin Mary assuring me that I won't go to hell. Get yourself a sweet Madonna dressed in rhinestone satin on pedestal of abalone shell. Going 90, I ain't scary, 'cause I got the Virgin Mary assuring me that I won't go